Britain Owes Palestine is a campaign calling out the UK for its unlawful oppression of Palestinians dating back to the Balfour Declaration in 1917. I'm in Nottingham speaking with Dr. Victor Kattan, one of the key voices behind the movement. Their main message? Acknowledge, apologise, reparations.
Earlier in September, a group of Palestinian petitioners, mostly those who survived the events of the Palestine Mandate when Britain was the colonial power in Palestine, submitted a legal document, a challenge to the British government, over 400 pages long, outlining a series of violations of international law committed when the United Kingdom had responsibility for the territory. It has a number of asks, the most significant of which is an apology, which we want the Prime Minister to read out in the House of Commons. We also want to have a discussion about reparations. When the Balfour Declaration was issued in November 1917, the Brits hadn't yet occupied or conquered Palestine, but they knew that victory was likely. And so it was a promise in a letter addressed to Lord Rothschild, promising the Jewish people, or they never defined who the Jewish people were, a national home in Palestine, the British state, as early as 1923. Decided that if they were going to pursue this policy in the Balfour Declaration, it could only be enforced through repression by armed force, because the Palestinians would never willingly acquiesce to the Balfour policy. And so there was always an element of coercion involved in British policy in Palestine. The British state used the law, not the rule of law, which we often hear, but rule by law. And they did this by adopting Draconian legislation, such as defence emergency regulations, that gave the British authorities, civil and police and military, basically the powers to do almost anything they thought necessary in order to maintain law and order. And of course some of these laws were abused. So you had cases of what we now call waterboarding. That was the tactic that was used by the Brits in Palestine in the 1930s, collective punishment. There was a massacre called the Al-Bassa bus massacre. This is a village in Palestine, and the Brits accused the villagers of supporting one of the rebels who had attacked and killed British soldiers in a convoy. And they didn't have any evidence to support that, but what they did, it didn't stop them from basically rounding up all the villagers, putting them into cages and forcing all the young men into a bus, which they then drove over a hidden, a concealed mine, blowing up the bus and killing all the occupants. House demolitions, so the idea you blow up the house. Sometimes there's the people inside, sometimes without them, to punish them for supporting the rebels. We see these policies being taken throughout decades by Israel in the West Bank and Gaza. And these are policies that they inherited from the British. In many ways, the Israel Defense Force is a creation of the Brits, because they gave them all the technology and the training, and initially also the weapons to be able to create this force, training in intelligence gathering and the like. Other counterinsurgency techniques used by the British in Palestine that the Israelis learned from was strapping Palestinians to the front of armoured vehicles, and then driving, so human shields if you like. Also caging. This is the idea you drag all the villagers out and you literally put them in cages and you deny them water and food until they fess up to whatever they've been accused of. So some of the biggest massacres occur while the Brits are still on the ground. Deir Yassin is probably the most famous one, but the fall of Haifa, the fall of Jaffa. These all happen while British soldiers are still there. So we've asked for an apology from the British government. The dossier of evidence is over 400 pages long, has been sent to the Prime Minister's office, the Foreign Office, the Ministry of Defence and the Attorney General's chambers. For many of the victims, an apology is not enough. It's just a starting point. And we want people in this country to know about the past, to know about what happened when Britain was a colonial power in Palestine. This is not a subject that's taught in schools, and perhaps it should be. It should be really on the national curriculum, taught perhaps at GCSE level. At the same time, we have museums dedicated to British imperial history. We have the Army War Museum, and there's virtually nothing about the Arab revolts. My hope is that more and more people in the UK will learn about this history and will come to a better understanding of the roots of the violence in the region, the colonial history, the continuities of policies, because we can only really heal and understand and hope to end this conflict if we understand how it began in the first place and why it continues.